I guess that's also like black metal as a subculture and genre is it's so contradictory because it's supposed to be about individualism, but still you have these subcultural rules that you have to comply by in order to get status, and it's just very weird to me. I'm Susanne Hansen. I'm a technical sound designer and sound artist in games and interactive art. And I also have the black metal project Nachtlieder. Nachtlieder has been around for a long time. I started the project when I was in my early 20s, and now I'm almost 40, so I honestly can't remember how it all started out. But I've been when I started working with sound design, I realized that it's not so much music that I've been in love with, it's actually sound itself. And I started loving sound at a very early age. Like I started playing violin when I was some 8 years old. And I remembered like picking up the bow and just creating noise on the violin, even though I didn't actually know how to play it. I just loved making the noise, and that's sort of been going on uh, throughout my upbringing and as an adult until I finally settled for sound design and more electroacoustic music and sound art. But in between this, there's been like musical development as well. Um, where I've been trying to follow musical rules, and it can be challenging, but it's also quite limiting in terms of uh, artistic goals. But specifically Nachtlied, I guess I've always been drawn to more extreme forms of sound and music, and black metal specifically was very raw, and there's a lot of texture in it, which I really like. And I just wanted to create this myself. Um, yeah, and I meant it to be a band to start with, but I couldn't really find anyone to collaborate with. So in order to get something done, I just had to do it myself. So it became eventually a one-person project.
Hi, I'm Elanor Harper from Missoula, Montana, and Lust Hag is my solo act. I sort of got into music because my dad had a large CD collection and he would let me go through it and just listen to whatever I wanted. And then we had a drum set and a guitar in the house, so I was always kind of just playing around with that stuff. Basically, I just kind of use, my own despair and struggles and being a trans woman in America, it's got its own things that are frustrating and you're just constantly ostracized. So I use that sort of isolation to motivate my songwriting. Genres don't mean a whole lot to me. Basically, my approach is just write some riffs, and if you can fucking like jam to it, it's good. People call me black metal. I tend to be a little bit more influenced by death metal riffs, but I guess the overall sound that I create ends up being a bit more black metal. So
I'm Olga Kann, musician, composer of Witherland. It's a fantasy metal project which combines symphonic, atmospheric, black metal, Viking, folk, dungeon scene, and more. I also have some other projects which I will tell you about a little later. In fact, I wanted to become a musician and composer since early childhood. I knew it clearly, especially after I was not accepted to a music school. So this is probably the best thing that happened to me, because music became such a kind of forbidden fruit for me. One of my favorite bands from my childhood was Iron Maiden. That's where the love for the bass guitar comes from, you know. Also, I remember my cousin and I would draw imaginary logos of imaginary bands of ours. Imagine ourselves on stage. He forgot about his dreams over time, but I didn't. It's my blessing and it's my curse. Music is always with me. I've always been interested in composing music myself, not just playing someone else's material. I learned a lot to understand the language of music on my own. Then I turned to music teachers a little later. In addition to metal, I've always really liked classical music. I constantly draw inspiration from classical music, opera, and modern neoclassical music, cinematic. I always wasn't interested in playing something banal. I try to bring in something unusual styles to each of my projects, to do something atypical in the arrangements. So many reviewers sometimes find it difficult to give a general description of my stuff and give very different analogies. Think about 2008 approximately. I tried to compose my own songs, record them, communicated with other musicians, and began to form my first serious projects. Not so serious, but the first bands. At first I tried myself in extreme vocals. We did some covers for Cradle Filth, Monomart and some other bands, and a little later I primarily took up bass and continue compose my songs.
Main themes for Nachtlieder is a lot about it comes across in all of my art, really. It's about inner processes, existential questions about life, about death, about being a human. When it comes to like the artistic themes, sound wise, it's a lot about messiness, depths, many layers, very dense soundscapes. And yeah, these existential questions, I guess, is quite typical for black metal. We're not really afraid of the dark things, I guess. We're fascinated by it, I suppose, and we want to approach these things because it gives us something. There's one, I remember there's like one comment on the internet that really stuck with me. It was a YouTube comment. I don't even remember what the video was about, but someone wrote that black metal is about the absurdity of your existence and the certainty of your death. And I thought that was so well said, because it's absolutely true.
Autolysia, I was in a band, and I thought that I could work on something by myself without having to feel restricted by my bandmates, I guess. Basically, we weren't writing at a pace that I was really satisfied with, so I thought I would start my own project. And then how did I come up with the name? I ended up wanting something memorable, I guess. I always liked names like Witch Vomit and, I don't know, Bell Witch. I don't really listen to Bell Witch, but I always liked that name. So I wanted to do something that was feminine and sort of reclaim something that maybe was negative. I settled on Lust Hag because I liked the ring that it kind of had when you say it, and yeah, started recording. My inspiration's always just been like personal experience. Musical inspiration, I kind of feel inspired by a little bit of everything I listen to. Yeah.
There are a number of advantages and disadvantages to work in solo. I have worked in groups a lot, played gigs, worked in studios, and I still have projects where I collaborate with other people. Regarding with the land, at one point I thought that the disadvantages of working in a group outweighed the adventures, and I decided to work solo. About the adventures of working in a team. If we say that this is a team where every last member is interested in developing a common cause, and the emotional, compositional, financial, and the time contribution is approximately equal, that's it's one story. In practice, everyone has their own priorities, their own life, and it's hard to blame anyone for that. That's life. Yes, the full band has mathematically more opportunities. This is several times a larger budget for promotion. This is several times more ideas, which by the way is not always so great, but can also generate a lot of contradictions. However, for me, the more important point was the ability to make decisions independently, to work in my own tempo, to receive hate and attention alone. It's so narcissistic maybe approach, well, but I see more return on my activities and do not feel that this time all it is wasted. And of course, after all, I don't have the easiest character. I just do what I can at my own pace, enjoy the process, and I try not to disturb anyone.
I did have, perhaps not role models, but people who inspired me as a child. Alanis Morissette was the first woman I saw on MTV who could play guitar, and I thought that was really, really cool. I was like 9 years old or something. And then as a teen, I found punk rock music, and Bikini Kill were very important. So I wouldn't really like to say that they've been role models. I've never really had role models, but sometimes you see a person or encounter something that really inspires you and sort of kicks you in the butt to get things going. Yeah, those people. Those people were important in that case. Same with like Joanne Bench from Voltro. I thought she was so amazing because she's so small. Like her base is almost as long as she is, and I just thought it was really really nice to see a woman on stage kicking ass. It made me feel like I can do it as well, despite being small.
My DAW of choice. And could I talk about the equipment I use? Yes, I recorded my latest project in GarageBand. I used this Schecter Explorer, which I'm very happy with. It's a lot of fun. And then lately I've been using this pedal, the APMD2, which is made by HM2 Cult. And it's basically just a fully dimed HM2, but it's got one button on and off. So it's nice and easy. Do I think more minimalist equipment is better for black metal? My attitude has always been use whatever you've got. So whether that's super fancy gear or just the amp and GarageBand, like, don't let it stop you from making music.
So, short tour of my workstation. I'm not very much into fancy gear. This is one of my favorite tools. It's a Zoom H5 hand recorder. I use it for field recordings since nowadays I mostly do sound design and sound art, so quite a lot of field recordings and recordings outside of this place. Awesome thing. Necro approved, works really well. I used it this morning to record my my washing machine for an art installation that's going to take place at Gothenburg Film Studios in a couple of weeks. That's what I'm currently working on. Otherwise, my favorite microphone for this room is definitely the SM58. Very much Necro approved. Works really well for picking up small sounds in this noisy environment, so I use that one a lot. Some Indian tala cymbals, use them for sound design. Great sound. I have a couple of Arduino devices that I use for interactive sound experiments. Here's an inspirational shelf with some releases from my friends. So there are a couple of Nigredo record releases. My producer Deha is represented many times. Black Autumn, project from a friend from Germany who has been supporting Nachtlieder for a lot of years. We have some Mother of the Hydra, a great album by V Chaos. She played with Asagram for a couple of years. Gorgosaur by Åsa Hagström. She made the cover photo for the Female of the Species album. She's a great photographer and great musician. Here are a few of my instruments. I have more, but they don't all fit in here. This is my favorite guitar. It's an Ibanez RGA7. You can hear it on Lynx, the album. I switched the pickups from active to passive a couple of years ago, despite the dudes on the internet saying that you can't switch the pickups on the Ibanez RGA7 because there are no specifications on how the electronics works. But fuck them, because I'm a really smart person and it was no problem to switch them out. I figured that out. And now it sounds absolutely amazing. Seymour Duncan pickups. I have a picture of Alfira, the bard from Baldur's Gate 3, because I'm a nerd. This is by an amazing artist called Sandra Elderberry. I have one of her originals as well. Very beautiful art. And in my splashy studio you always need pads for sound absorption when you're gonna record something. So even my beautiful Indian dance saris are being hung up for sound absorption from time to time. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and my monitors. I want to mention my monitors. Genelec, highly recommended. They sound absolutely amazing. But yeah, that's it.
It just so happened historically that I used Studio One for, and I won't say this is better or worse than others, but I'm a man of habit. For the same reason I use Guitar Pro 5, for example. In my work I have to pay a lot of attention to the software, But the less hassle with settings and the more ready-made templates I have, the more space there is for art itself. My computer is the most ordinary. For my design and video activities, I need quite a lot of RAM, a good video card, and so on, but nothing supernature. My external audio interface is Behringer Euphoria 404 HD. Nothing special. There was a phantom power, which is important for recording vocals. My home microphone for recording is an Audio Technica 2020 AT. Sometimes I also close myself with the screen on all sides during recording. As for musical instruments, I am a big fan of Ibanez. Until recently, I had two basses of this brand, a 4-string SRX 500 and a 5-string model. At the moment, I only have the 5-string SR 305. Very cool beast both at concerts and in recording. I have a simple MIDI keyboard with 6-to-1 keys. I also have two ethnic instruments, a Karelian Finnish 9-string kantele and a Scandinavian bass tegel harp. They were custom made for me by Karelian craftsmen Sergei Didykhin and Semyon Sinelnikov. I have already tried them out in a studio recording. It's an amazing experience, I'd say.
Probably the history and its origins. It's very interesting to see how we came to this point. With the proto bands kind of pushing black metal to its extremes, or its death metal to its extremes, and then you've got the second wave coming in with all their controversy and the church burnings and everything. Like, it's hard not to be fascinated by all of what's going on and whatever the scene is. I think a lot of typically oppressed or marginalized people maybe are attracted to black metal because it is a genre that's largely surrounded by, despair and evil and isolation, and a lot of us feel isolated, so.
It's been being drawn to this coldness and roughness that I talked about. It gives me something on the inside. It evokes emotion, and I like that. If something is moving, then it's good art. And black metal does that more to me. Well, it used to back in the day. It used to move me more than other musical genres.
Music is a huge world and it takes up a significant part of my life. I don't have time to do anything, especially considering my mental or cognitive features. It's very difficult for me to concentrate all the time. I'm constantly in some kind of endless race with myself. But probably if I were asked how I would like to live my other life, I would answer that I would like to live it the same way as now.
Support musicians by buying their music. And if you've been considering ditching your Spotify, I think now is the time.